Hello everyone, I am Sital Bera, Assistant Professor Maths University, Raipur. I welcome you all in this lecture session. Today we will discuss about Victorian novels. As you all know that Victorian era was started in England in the year 1837 with the ascension of Queen Victoria into the throne of England, and the era continued up to 1901 when Queen Victoria was died. Like other literary ages, as found in the history of English literature, that in every age there is certain distinction among the different literary genres like poetry, drama, novel, fiction. For example, in Elizabethan era or in the age of Renaissance, we have seen the growth or the rapid development of dramatic form as well as sonnet. In the 18th century, the age of criticism, growth of critical treatise, critical approaches in literature, then neoclassical trend among the writers, romantic era, growth of romanticism, a great number of romantic poets that became or who became the cause of sudden growth of poetry in the romantic era. And in Victorian era, the era is called age of novel or fiction due to its rapid progress and contribution in the genre of novel writing. There are some factors and causes that prompted the massive growth and approach fiction and its increasing popularity among the worldwide readers. Some of the important causes of the sudden or the rapid growth of Victorian novel are as follow. First, during Victorian age, we have seen the middle class people, they came into power and importance, and Victorian novel covers a large number of middle class people as its readers. Second point, development of publishing facility with the advancement of science and technology. As the era is called age of science and technology, and also industrial revolution, so those things made publishing facility very easier. Because of that, a large number of novels are being printed and it is spread everywhere. Availability of ample and diverse themes, we can point it as the third point, and those availability of ample themes which are caused by industrial revolution, poverty, child labor, social reformation, and at the latter part of the Victorian era, a shift of transition from Victorian approach to modernism. So those diversified themes and aspects gave a platform, suitable subjects for novel writing. Then fourth point, growth in the circulation and publication of magazines, journals and weeklies, which were the popular medium for many novels during the Victorian era. And the fifth and the most important point is Victorian era had a number of God-gifted novelists like Charles Dickens, William Makepeace Thackeray, George Eliot, Elizabeth Gaskell, Thomas Hardy, Anthony Trollope, the Bronte sisters, and some others. If we subcategorize or the Victorian novelists into two groups, then there will be the first generation Victorian novelists like Charles Dickens, W.M. Thackeray, Anthony Trollope, Elizabeth Gaskell, and definitely the Bronte sisters. And the second generation Victorian novelist, we should have George Eliot, Thomas Hardy, George Meredith, and some others. Now talk about Charles Dickens. As you all know that Charles Dickens is not only the representative of the Victorian novels, Rather, he is the representative, or he is the most gigantic figure in the field of novel in world literature. He had written a large number of a large number of famous novels. He started writing novels at the age of 25 with the novel Pickwick Papers. After that, he became very popular during his time as well as in the global literature, in the history of English literature, in all the ages. Dickens' concern of writing was humanistic. He depicted sorrowful side of life, poverty, orphanage, then a humanitarian approach, a tone of melancholy lament due to industrial revolution, how people's life were greatly affected. As in one side England was growing, another side the dark side of England is also captured in his novel. And some of the or major novels of Charles Dickens are as follows. First one, the Pickwick Papers, then Oliver Twist, Nicholas Nickleby, A Christmas Carol, David Copperfield, Bleak House, Little Dorrit, A Tale of Two Cities, and Great Expectations. So these are not only the famous novels of the Victorian era, rather these novels always remembered as the greatest contribution in the field of novel in world literature. Then the next figure we will talk about is William Makepeace Thackeray. He appeared as the rival to Charles Dickens. He is chiefly remembered for his famous novel Vanity Fair, which is having a subtitle A Novel Without a Hero. This is a historical novel and very popular in the trend of Victorian novel, and Thackeray has borrowed the title from Bunyan's Pilgrim's Progress. He and another novel he wrote, The Luck of Barry Lyndon. He appeared as a rival to Dickens, and at the same time he was different in his attitude. He was a satirist and a parodist, and he directed his criticism on high society, military prowess, the institution of marriage, and hypocrisy. So there is a certain distinction between William Makepeace Thackeray and Charles Dickens. Charles Dickens humanistic. He is highlighting the problems of the society, the sorrowful image of the society. On the other hand, William Makepeace Thackeray is directing or directed his criticism on the higher society, government failure. So one is critical in his approach, another one is concerned, humanistic concern in his approach. Next, we'll talk about uh, the Bronte sisters, like Emily Bronte first, and she is famous for Wuthering Heights. It's a gothic fiction and deals with myth, class, and gender issues. And Charlotte Bronte, she is famous for the novel Jane Eyre. It is also gothic in its theme. Then another novelist, Elizabeth Gaskell. She is also very profound in her lifetime and in the era also. And some of the major novels of hers are Mary Barton, North South. Now talk about the second generation Victorian novelist. First one, obviously, George Eliot. George Eliot, it was not the actual name of the novelist. The actual name of the novelist is Mary Ann Evans. She took a male name as she can write freely. She has also contributed a large number of novels. The most remarkable among them are The Meal on the Floors, Middlemarch, Adam Bede, Silas Marner, Romola, etc. Charles Dickens, or mostly the novelist of the late part of Victorian era, they are psychological and realistic in their attitude. Here, in her writing, a tone of realistic tone and a treatment of psychological insight into the characters are very finely depicted, very finely elaborated in her writing. Then another novelist of Victorian era is definitely Thomas Hardy. He is also very famous. After Dickens, the name of Thomas Hardy comes. Then, if some major novels which gave him wide popularity as a novelist are Under the Greenwood Tree, Far from the Madding Crowd, The Mayor of Casterbridge, Tales of the D'Urbervilles, Jude the Obscure. Now, Thomas Hardy, he is totally different in his attitude, in his subject matter, in his approach as depicted in his novels. His novels are basically rustic and has rural setup. The place Wessex is imaginary land which is very closely associated, or he has created the artificial that land Wessex, and in most of his novels that place comes. He is remembered, or his dealing of novels are different from Dickens, George Eliot, and Thackeray. He is like romantic in his attitude, though he is a Victorian. Still, in his attitude, or he was greatly influenced by Romanticism and William Wordsworth. So his writings, the novels, particularly those Tales of the D'Urbervilles, Mayor of the Casterbridge, Under the Greenwood Tree, these novels have rustic setup or rural, a shift towards rural or very native places is being traced in his writing. So after them, like Dickens, then Thackeray, George Eliot, Thomas Hardy, Bronte sisters, the remaining other famous novelists of that period are Elizabeth Gaskell, Anthony Trollope, George Meredith, and George Gissing. So these, or they were the prominent Victorian novelists ever remembered in the world literature. Thank you everyone.